Hi, welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. We are going to continue our, well, let me see if you can see the screen. Our journey into the deep of this language, and I believe in language recursive thinking. So by reflecting on my native language, explaining to another language user, so looking from English perspective back at Chinese, that helped me to learn, to understand how my currency was used. So last time we talked about 不治之症 is incurable disease. That's how Chinese are saying it, and use 治 as the connector. And today we have 症 continue in 症结所在. 症结所在 is another commonly used Chinese expression. So when we almost like imagined in detective stories, when the detective was finding out something from the clues, which kind of like from the disease. Well, here it's more like symbols, actually. I mean, symptoms. So from the symptoms, from the appearances or evidence, and the 症结所在, and then that leads to the knot, the crucial of how the core of the issue, right? So how that all entangled evidences point at. So that's 症结所在. Okay, 症 again. The contemporary 症 is a simplification of Chinese using the meaning maker and the sound maker to pronounce like a 症, and then to give you the meaning of, okay, it's something related to disease. And in contemporary Chinese, it's mostly used to mean the symptoms of disease, not the cause of the disease. So that's, but over here, I didn't distinguish, I just say disease. As I said before, it's more accurate here to use the symptom meaning of this 症, because symptom means evidence, means the appearance. There could be multiple symptoms pointing towards something, and doctor is like a detective trying to find what's the cause, right? From all those traces of symptoms. It came from the speaking sign in ancient language. Chinese expression is the speaking sign, the mouth symbol, the tip of the tongue, the pointer of the tongue means it's inside the mouth, so pointing toward the mouth, and then the two sound bites stacking up. The whole thing has the organs, the mouth and the tongue, and the results, the sound bites related to speaking. So you already have, essential part, definition of speaking, like what produced speaking and what's the result of the speaking. So over there. And the right side means 登. According to some scholars, there's a stepping on some tool, excuse me, onto the carriage. So the vehicles back then on wheels, people, it's not easy to step onto. It's elevated because it's on the ground. So a lot of times people need to step onto this tool to get into the carriage. So that stepping onto get extracted to mean stepping on higher elevation, going higher elevation. So this 登 was the sound maker of that, paired with speaking. But I can imagine this is the kind of speaking that's stepped onto a higher elevated ground. And I can also imagine it as a building up of your argument, your case, right? So speaking as if you're stepping onto something higher. So build up a perspective that's on a higher elevation. So that is harder to, it's easier to defend. I don't exactly know. In the art of debate, but this higher elevation kind of speaking eventually means used here to paired with disease. It means the evidence of the disease. Okay, and 结 is the knotting of fabric. So the left side here, the two knots connected on a string with this drapey, this three, and this more likely. So this kind of a drapey thing, my fingers doesn't represent it nice, but here it looks like fabric draping and knots on the fabric on some kind of thread or spool connected together. Altogether, it means something related to fabric, to textile. And the right side is 急, so it could be regarded just as a sound maker. And 急 by itself, the meaning is like auspicious, right? Auspicious. Gosh, sorry. Bear with my English, not really working this morning. We have this symbol. It looks like a cross, right? Standing on the ground, but has nothing to do with cross. This means either a warrior or a scholar. So it's somebody who is certified to do something, some trained person that can be useful for the country, okay, to defend the country. So you can view it as almost like a SWAT team, something like that, right? It's very specialized, can either kill or speak on top of, or diplomatic, either way. But in Chinese, we call it 文傲武, can beat you up or speak you out of it, or either function. It's somebody who is essential to the defense of the country. So that's 是, and we have the mouse symbol at the bottom. According to some scholars, this means, this defense system putting within mouse symbol. Probably ancient times, that square rectangular thing could mean something else too, besides the mouse, which is most likely the speaking function. So according to some scholars, the top portion, it means weaponry, and the bottom is a container of the weaponry. So this shows like the weaponry are going to be contained. So that means it's not at war, it's a peaceful time. In ancient time, if it's no war era, that's considered auspicious era, peace, and that's, I don't know, probably hard-earned balance between powers, right? So that's kind of what's considered as a good year or good time. So that's 吉. And when it paired with fabrics, that sound of 吉 paired with the fabric becomes 结. That's the knot. And I would imagine if we go by the logic of weaponry in a container, and this container weaponry thing, when it comes with fabric, it could be fabric like wrapped up, so that it's easy to contain. Okay, I don't know if any of you deal with fabric before. So when we talk about a flat fabric, they're going to be rolled up in a big like spool thing, right? So that's easier to extend. When we talk about like knitting, the material of that is not like long thread, right? Like who want to deal with long threads? You can easily get things tangled and spend forever time to sort it out, right? And so people's way of keeping things in order, not get tangled, is to shape the thread in a certain way, like a circular, right? Big circular way, and then tie a big knot from it. So by knotting it together, it was placed firmly. They are not going to, the thread are not going to move on their own, and they are contained in that shape. So that's what I would imagine if the fabrics or the threads here contained, and that's by knot, put it in a big knot. And later on, it can unknot and get used when it comes to it. But as a storage, they better be in a knot to be contained. So that's in parallel comparison to the weaponry, put it in container. Okay, enough of that knotting. And then 锁, we have this half panel door. Ancient door, we have two panel door or one panel door. So this is half side of that panel door. How do I know it's a door? Because on the top portion, it's kind of decorated, and on the bottom, like a long structure. So you know it's a big frame, almost like, I mean, the door has to be a person's height and actually above the average person height, right? So people, when you enter a door, you don't have to bend in, right? So the door is in comparison, in relative to human height, they gotta be slightly taller. So you can see it's kind of a full frame on the framework of the word, the character. And then on the top portion, it's decorated, something going on. So that's the ancient way of decorating door on the upper panel on your eye level. When the visitors look at the door, they look at on the eye level. So things with limited resources, things are going to be decorated over here instead of at the bottom. So that's how the ancient door, abstraction looks like. And the right side is Jin, is the axe carving off from a log. And you can see this is a full log, and this is a piece being carved off. So this action of, chopping off a piece from the log, that becomes use the result of the action of the axe to imply that's axe work. So that's axe. So the whole thing here, this is a contemporary. It kind of looks like ancient, right? Still a little bit different, but this ancient way of writing how the axe looks like is the result of the axing. So we don't get to see how the axe itself looks like. It's the log that being carved off. That's used as the axe symbol. So when you have an axe symbol and next to a door, what does that mean? In my imagination, it's the building of making a door. So if you're chopping up wood to make a shed panel of door, that means you're kind of a house building, right? House building then eventually leads to the house itself. So 所 in a lot of contexts in Chinese, that means residence or place or station. Like depends on what function of that place that is. It could be household, residence, or commercial, or even governmental place. So we could use 所. So this 所 eventually becomes a container, and because it can apply in all kinds of situations. So 所 then extended to English where. I translated the where to indicate it's an indicator or a container, but I give you a specific sense of it's a container about places. So we don't really say what that is yet, but we know it's implying some generic place. So 正结所, then you know, okay, so we're talking about location, right? And the 在 is exist. So Chinese way of existing is pretty cool. The right side is the soil symbol. They look kind of similar, right? Both of them have two horizontal lines and one vertical line, except the right one, the vertical line, stop right there. It cannot go over. If it go over, it's another word. Just like this, it has to go over. If not go over, it's another word, right? If it doesn't go over, it becomes this word, right? You see, they look kind of similar. The top is slightly longer than the bottom horizontal line. And things has to be accurate in that way, right? Okay, so the right side means soil. It's soil because here, this first vertical horizontal line is the ground level. And then this is vertical line implies something growing from the soil, right? And then at the very end, that means the root of that growing thing. This horizontal line is an indicator. It's like, here is what we are talking about. That is under the ground level. That is the soil that the plant grow from. Okay, and the left side is what I call the innate nature or the talent of person. And the talent means, okay, so here again, the top line is the ground level. And then the bottom line is, again, the plant growing from it. But this indicator is stopping at the middle or the upper portion of this growing thing, the root portion of that. And by stopping right there, that indicator is pointing at, okay, that the root, that's what we're talking about. It's not like the bottom of the root, it's the soil, that's what we're talking about. Here is the root of the plant. And by pointing right at the root of the plant, and you can see the top portion is kind of short in comparison with this, right? So the top portion intentionally make it short because that means some young plant who is not growing tall yet. And from the above the ground level, you can only see a tiny little bit of that tip of the iceberg, so to speak, right? But the whole length at the bottom of it, you can see it's a long rooted or deeply rooted. And the pointer over there is kind of, okay, telling you this plant is going to grow tall because it has such a long root that shows its potential for the future. So this is also like, it's predictably going to be a big tree or something like that. So that's the talent, the way Chinese to express this is talent, because you can see, even if it's not observable above the ground, but under the surface. So basically it's pointing at the generic coding of that, or the root, some unobserved below the ground level innate quality of that plant that this is indicating to, that it sees the potential. So over time, it's going to grow tall. So this is kind of a promise of the future. That's Chinese way to say somebody is talented. That means somebody has the potential. And this potential, this innate quality, paired with soil, that internal, external, two sides of the element combined to mean something is in existence, because that's how some plant is going to exist. First, it has to have the potential to exist innately, right? It's a plant. And second, it has to have the environment to exist. So combined together, that's the definition of existence. So that's pretty lengthy, but I think that's a very philosophical understanding of, or separate the two elements of what is supporting existence. So 症结所在 talks about the crux of things. So all the evidence are pointing toward one conclusion or one cause, or something is the central engine of things that are happening. So I'm quoting this World War Z that I recently watched, and it talked about this process of discovering how this zombie world, this disease, got the crux of that zombie disease. And it shows, okay, out of control, right? Humans in face of zombies, waves of zombies, almost like defenseless. It's undefensible. But things look so strong, like a highly contagious disease, and it's like a killer disease, do have this crux that, sorry for the cat meowing around, if you can go find all the evidences, the little crumbs in the script, when people talk about how to, like a detective, find the way to the cure, then you need to pay attention and to find the crux of it. So eventually, this is the end of it. You can see zombies can do nothing to these humans anymore because he found it. He found the solution. So there we go. I'm not going to tell you more about that, but that story exactly illustrates what this 症结所在 is. And when Chinese people, when we use 症结所在, oftentimes it's a complicated thing. And we only see the observables, right? And we only have partial evidence or truths, right? And from that, people who try to find a solution for the problem would consider all the evidences, and they would sort of like build some theory, and then eventually find the crux of the problem, and that's how you're going to solve it. Okay, that's 症结所在. Cash into the of thinking by one word a day with Sophie. See you another day.